Hi, everyone. I hope that you are all doing well. Today, I want to read you the story, or at least a little bit of Mrs. Piggle Wiggle. And it's just like read aloud at school. You can have a snack, kick back, and think about what the pictures are in your mind. I expect I might as well begin by telling you all about Mrs. Piggle Wiggle so that whenever I mention her name, which I do very often in this book, I will not interrupt and ask, you will not interrupt and ask, who is Mrs. Piggle Wiggle? What does she look like? How big is she? How old is she? What color is her hair? Is her hair long? Does she wear high heels? Does she have any children? Is there a Mr. Piggle Wiggle? Mrs. Piggle Wiggle lives here in our town. She is very small and has a hump on her back. And when children ask her about the hump, she says, "Oh, that's a big lump of magic. Sometimes it turns me into a witch, other times into a dwarf or fairy, and on special occasions it makes me a queen." The children are all very envious of the hump because besides being magic, it is such a convenient fastening place for wings. Mrs. Piggle Wiggle has brown, sparkly eyes and brown hair, which she keeps very long, almost to her knees, so the children can comb it. She usually wears it on top of her head in a knot, unless someone has been combing it, and then she has braids or long wet curls or long hair just hanging and with a jeweled crown or flowers on top. Mrs. Piggle Wiggle's skin is a goldy brown and she has a warm, spicy sugar cookie smell that is very comforting to children who are sad about something. Her clothes are all brown and never look crisp and pressed because they're used for dress up. She wears felt hats, which the children poke and twist into witches' and pirates' hats, and she does not mind at all. Sunday morning, she takes one of her hats off the closet shelf, gives it a few thumps, puts it firmly down fore and aft, and wears it to church. She wears very high heels all the time and is glad to let the little girls borrow her shoes. Mrs. Piggle Wiggle has no family at all. She says that her husband, Mr. Piggle Wiggle, was a pirate, and after he buried all of his treasure in the backyard, he died. It's just her and Wag, her dog, and Lightfoot, her cat. The most remarkable thing about Mrs. Piggle Wiggle is her house, which is upside down. It's a little brown house, and sitting there in its tangly garden, it looks like a small brown puppy lying on its back with its feet in the air. Mrs. Piggle Wiggle says that when she was a little girl, she used to lie in bed and gaze up at the ceiling and wonder what it would be like if the house were upside down. And so when she grew up and built her own house, and she had it built upside down just to see. The bathroom, the kitchen, and the staircase are right side up, and they're more convenient that way. You can easily see that you could not cook on an upside down stove or wash dishes in an upside down sink or walk up upside down stairs. In the living room of her house is a large chandelier, and instead of being on the ceiling, it's on the floor. Of course, it's really on the ceiling, but the ceiling is the floor, and so it's on the floor, and the children turn on the lights and then squat around it, pretending it's a campfire. Mrs. Piggle Wiggle says that her chandelier is the only one in town which is put to any real use. Her bedrooms all have slidey boards in them, because if you will look up at your attic ceiling, you will see that a slanty ceiling turned upside down makes a very fine slidey board. And also, all the wall lights are very close to the floor and handy for small children. For the first 5 or 10 years after the house was built, Mrs. Piggle Wiggle climbed in and out of her windows over the high doorways, but now she has little steps, which are just the thing to practice jumping. She gives the children chalk so they can mark on the rug how far they jump. No one really knows how old Mrs. Piggle Wiggle is. She says she doesn't know herself. She says, "What difference does it make how old I am? Because I shall never grow any bigger." Mrs. Piggle Wiggle's dog Wag has puppies every once in a while, and so she keeps a long list of names of children who want them on the blackboard in her kitchen. For Lightfoot the cat's kittens, she has a long waiting list on the blackboard in the dining room. Mrs. Piggle Wiggle's backyard is full of big holes where small children dig for Mr. Piggle Wiggle's buried treasure, and her front yard is full of flowers which everyone picks and jams into vases and places them in her living room or carries them to their teacher. Every child in town is a friend of Mrs. Piggle Wiggle, but she knows very few parents. She says grown-ups kind of make her nervous. That is a good place to stop. Now you have a vision of what Miss Piggle Wiggle looks like. and what her house looks like. And it would be really fun today if you grabbed a piece of paper and a pencil and some crayons and you drew a picture of Mrs. Piggle Wiggle and her upside down house, because that's what good readers do. They visualize, they think about what the things that they're reading look like. And I'd love to see some of your pictures if there's a way for you to send me your pictures today of Mrs. Piggle Wiggle and her upside down house.